Somebody's going, if I put out 15 pieces of content, nobody'd pay attention because it's too much content. It's not. And here's the reason. I put out, again, 10 to 15 pieces a day. I have a great friend that does 20 plus pieces a day. You know how many? He's a great friend who I follow, who is on my favorites list. You know how many pieces of his content I see a day? 2 or 3. And he does 20 every day. Because the algorithms are not going to show every piece of content to every person in your audience. It just doesn't work that way. But the problem is when we go, well, I'm afraid I don't want my audience to get overwhelmed. So I'll put out one a day. That's a lot. I'm still a little worried. Your audience is probably going to see one post from you a week.
What if you could walk into your office each morning and find your research done, your social posts written, your blog posts drafted, and your video scripts ready to record, all before your first coffee? Welcome to Big Moves AI. I'm your host, Simone Leah. In today's session, I sit down with Jonathan Mast, founder of Whitebeard Strategies and one of the most practical voices in AI training for entrepreneurs and content creators. We get into exactly what an AI agent is and how it differs from regular chat, how Jonathan runs a full content repurposing pipeline that produces 25 social posts, multiple blog posts, and video scripts every single day, and how you can start building something similar without any technical background. This session is packed with real systems and live walkthroughs you'll want to watch all the way through. So stay with us until the end. I'm so excited about this because obviously we're all hearing about AI agents and you have such a great platform. You have such great content. So hearing about how you use your agents to create your output and what you're doing in your personal brand, your business, I think is just going to be so valuable for everyone. So where do we start?
Well, let's begin by a premise, if I may, that to begin this off for as it relates to AI, and that's real simple. I believe at my core, AI amplifies skill and experience. And so the things we're going to show you today regarding using AI to create content do not involve just creating as much content as you can and putting it out there, but involves creating helpful content that your audience is going to cherish, that AI does the heavy lifting. And if I can, to begin, think of it just for a moment as if we said we were going to go to a musical together. Now, some of you may not like musicals. It could be a play, but just imagine we're going to a theater where there's an orchestra pit. And in that orchestra pit, if you've ever been to one before, the orchestra is looking out at the crowd. They're not looking at the stage. Now, you could have the most amazing people in your orchestra, the best musicians in the world. But if the conductor doesn't show up to watch what's going on stage and to direct the orchestra, when do the woodwinds come in? When do the percussion get loud? And when do the brass quiet down? When do the strings come in? If that's not there, if the conductor doesn't show up, those musicians, even though they're amazingly talented, can't make beautiful music because there's no one directing them. And the same is true with AI. AI is your orchestra. You're the conductor. You need to be there to direct it. But just like the conductor doesn't play every instrument in the orchestra, you don't need to do all that either. But you do need to be there to direct it. And I think that's really important as we kick things off. So with that, let's talk about AI agents, because we've all heard about agents and we've heard how amazing agents are going to be and all of the stuff that they can do. But at the end of the day, a lot of us are like, can you tell me what an agent is? So let's start with, what is an agent? Now, I'm going to give you my perspective. There is no Webster's defined version that I'm aware of at the moment. So we're going to talk about that. When you go into using AI, there's generally a chat window that you work with. And now in many cases, there's an agentic window or agentic tool that you can use as part of that. Here's the key difference. Agents let you do two things that don't work well inside of normal chat. The first thing, if you've ever tried to do a multi-step process with chat, and that could be Chat GPT, it could be Gemini, could be Claude. I'm going to show you Claude today. That's a window I'm sharing. Could be Claude Chat, any of those. You can generally give it one or two things and it will do those really well. But much like my teenager or even myself, if my wife gives me 17 things to do, generally by number 3, I've forgotten what all of the rest of them were. And AI works the same way. It doesn't work well when you do a big, long workflow that's got 27 tasks in it, unless you use an agent, because an agent has persistent memory and can track what's being done. So you can give an end goal to an agent. It'll help figure out all the steps it needs to do in order to achieve that goal, and then it can execute on those goals. Now, as part of that, one of the things that make agents historically unique is the ability to go out and actually control your computer, open up your web browser, open up other applications, click around, get data, run reports, do all of that. That used to be the case, but now a lot of the chat tools are beginning to get those. So that's less of an issue. But still, characteristic number one, massive workflow versus a couple tasks at a time. Massive workflows are agents. The other thing that's really important when we start talking about agents is, again, their ability to control other applications and to pull data, to be scheduled, to be able to act almost autonomously, not totally autonomously, but almost autonomously. In other words, I can go to an agent and I can give it a goal and I can say, my goal is, as part of content creation, that I want to do research every morning on a particular topic. And then I want to develop talking points on that topic. And then I want to create social media points or posts, blog posts, video scripts, images, even AI video today. And an agent can do all of that. I'm going to show you an example of that in just a minute on my screen of how that type of workflow can work. So when it comes to creating content for your audience, what workflows allow you to do is to offload more of the work and spend less time guiding the AI once it's set up. Think of agents like this. If you were going to hire an assistant to sit next to at your desk and it was going to work with you hand in hand, so to speak, or literally sitting at your desk, you'd have to train that new employee, that new assistant, how to do things. You need to train your agents how to do things as well. We call those skills, by the way, much like we would call them if we had an employee. But your agent can string together multiple skills, just like an employee can, and can complete larger tasks with multiple steps because of its persistent memory. So let me just give you an example and show you one thing that I do. This is the way that I create a great deal of my content every single day. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up Claude here a minute. There we go. Thank you for the help from behind the scenes. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into Claude Cowork. Now, Cowork is the agentic aspect of Claude. There are other agents out there. You may have heard of things like OpenClaw. You may have heard of Hermes. You may have heard of Manus and others. So there's lots of out there. Perplexity Computer, I could name a lot. Not trying to avoid any. But you'll see in here, I have a series of scheduled tasks. Some of them are related to content and some are not. But let's focus on the one that I think will probably resonate the most. And I'm going to pop into my daily AI content research. So if I click on my daily AI content research, what this is designed to do, and I can schedule this, by the way, is it's designed to go out, and I'll take a look at the instructions over here. Actually, let's go on the edit so we can see it. So it's my daily AI content research. I'm an AI coach, so that's why that's the topic I focus on. Full content repurposing pipeline using 5-tier sources, company announcements, Reddit, newsletters, influencer groups, and product hunt launches. So imagine that you're creating content and you've identified 5 different sources for the content that you want to do research. And you've hired a researcher that every morning when you come into work has the research done on what's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours from all those sources. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing here. You can see there's a lot of text in these instructions. I won't go over all of it and bore you, but basically what I've said is, find out what today's date is. Your job, and here's the big part, your job is to research and report on recent AI content from a diversified set of sources, and then run a full content repurposing pipeline. What is a content repurposing pipeline? It's whatever you define it as. For me, a content repurposing pipeline is writing social media posts in the way that I've instructed it to do so, writing blog posts in the way that I've decided and instructed to write, and writing video scripts and creating images. All of those get done. And again, I won't bore you, but it has an entire thing. So my step 1, here's my tier 1. We look at company announcements. Then tier 2, I go to Reddit and we look at things on Reddit. Then tier 3, when I find it here a minute, we've got to scroll. There's a lot of Reddit groups we check. There we go. Tier 3, I have a series of newsletters that it goes through and checks. Then I have an influencer group that has different influencers that it checks. Then it goes out and checks Product Hunt for any new launches. Once it's done all that, it writes a report that I call an AI influencer landscape report. By the way, this is not the content that I'm giving away. This is the content that my tool is going to use. Again, think like you've got a researcher who's an amazing researcher. He's an amazing copy, or she is an amazing copywriter, and all of that in one person. So after they summarize all that, they write a report. What are the key announcements? What are the key things from Reddit? What's going on? Goes through all of that, identifies trending themes. It then identifies by sources what's going on. And this is the key right here. It creates talking points based on all that data. So it's went out and done all my research based on what I wanted it to do. It knows, by the way, who my audience is. And now it takes all of that research for the day and creates 3 to 5 talking points. Why do I create 3 to 5 talking points? I don't want to plagiarize anybody, but I also don't want to take the time to read all that content and figure it out myself. So my AI agent goes out and reads all the content. It discerns what's there based on the parameters that I've given it. And now it says, Jonathan, based upon all this research I did, here's 3 to 5 talking points that we're going to talk about. And it works so well, it actually emails those to me so that I can have those for reference. Then it saves the report and no big deal. It sends it via Gmail. And then it goes in and it creates thread-based posts. So I have 5 talking points now. It's going to go ahead and Veronica, by the way, I name all of my tools. It's easier to reference them that way. So Veronica, who's an AI tool that I've trained how I want to write thread-based posts, how I want them to come across, how to write the hooks, how to write the CTA, how to make sure everything's filled out just the way I want. So it sounds like me and not AI. By the way, I've trained it on my voice as well. Now it goes in and it generates thread-based social media posts for every one of those. By the way, it generates 5. So now I went from 5 talking points to 25 social media posts that are ready for me to go first thing in the morning. You may go, well, Jonathan, that sounds like AI slop to me. No, it's not, because I've trained it on my audience and I've trained it on my voice and my style. Admittedly, I probably can use 22 out of the 25 any given day, but that's not bad. That's 22. I don't even need 22. So I don't use it. Then here's an example. Again, I won't bore you with all that. Then step 7, it emails that. We'll skip that part. Then blog posts. I don't know about you, but when I write a blog post, which has been a number of years that I really wrote one, it takes me hours to put together a really good blog post. So I used to outsource them. The problem is when I'd outsource them, they didn't get written the way I liked them. They weren't really good. Well, again, I've trained my agent, I've trained my AI how to go ahead and write like me, Jonathan, and how to write a blog post in a way that my audience is interested in. And it then goes out and writes that entire blog post following exactly what I want. You can see I'm even referencing my voice in here. I call it my self-scribe, so it knows what to do that. It's a variable that it has. I tell it how long I want it to be. I lay out the entire structure that I want by section, and it creates for me 5 blog posts. It even then does a little better. I have 2 websites. I don't know, some of you guys may have more. I have my personal website at jonathanmast.com, and I have my business website at whitebeardstrategies.com. It knows both of the websites, and after it writes the blog post, it evaluates the post compared to my sites and says, this one should go on jonathanmast.com, but these 3 should go on whitebeardstrategies.com. Why? Because I don't want to have to read them to figure out where they go. I now don't have to. So it's given that all in there, given the decision framework that it follows. All this was in here, tells where we want to publish it, saves the blog post, makes sure everything's in place, summarizes it for my team, gives this to my team, and by the way, emails it to my team with the blog post so that somebody can humanly review it. I'll admit, I've stopped reviewing my blog posts at this point. I've written literally thousands of them, and we've got it so dialed in that I really don't need to. It reflects me. Now, that's taken me 2 years to do, but you can do that in probably 2 months with some good work. Then it writes a daily video script. I love doing video, but a lot of times I don't know what I want. So now it writes me a video script on each one of the talking points. I don't like to read off a teleprompter. Like right now, I'm not reading off a teleprompter. So it gives me bullet points that I can do. It then creates a draft, creates images, and I could go on and on. It does all of that. Here's the great thing. If I want to run that, I can schedule it. I used to, but I also do quite a bit of travel now, so it doesn't need to run every day. So I run it myself when I want. But you can see I ran it today. Let's just take a quick look. So I went ahead this morning. Let's take a look here. I ran all the tools. It looks like I ran it today at 7:15 in the morning. It went through and put all this together. And when I got done, I had a lot of information that it had for me to take a look at. So let's take a look here. Here we go. Here's the actual files. By the way, all these files got emailed to my team, so they were all set. But I mentioned a report. Here's the influencer report that it sent me just on today. So this is just that report. Again, that's not being shared. I'm using that as data. I mentioned Veronica writes me social media posts. Take a look at this. Sorry, this is a long scroll. There's 25 thread-based posts here, everybody. I'm scrolling as fast as I can. Sorry, hang on. We're almost there. I know it seems like overkill, but now we get to pick and choose. Let me just read one random. This is from this morning. So the talking point is that most entrepreneurs are adding AI in the wrong order, and that's why nothing changes. And it's found out from the research that MIT research published when? May 26th. I'm recording this on May 27. I know you may be watching it later, but that means it was yesterday. This literally came out yesterday, and it found out that the right AI agents, that's ironic, something we're talking about right here, can accelerate your business processes by 30 to 50%. But the problem is they have to be deployed into redesigned workflows. Well, I could write all about that. It also came up with some stats that 85% of organizations say they want to be agentic, but 76% admit their current operations can't support it. Okay, that's pretty interesting. And now I have my threads. So here we go. You bought the AI tool, you did the onboarding, you tried it for 2 weeks and nothing changed. Here's why. So that's what I get. That's what gets posted. And now I've got it's thread based. So whether I'm in Twitter or threads or Facebook or wherever we're going to do it, I've got my post. So the first one is I'll just grab this one real quick. Every AI tool you add to a broken workflow just makes the broken workflow run faster. You didn't fix the leak, you got a bigger bucket. The entrepreneur is seeing efficiencies right now, redesigned the work first, and then they added AI. You can see just real quickly, that's based off that MIT study released yesterday. And I'm able to write about it. And then because I'm an AI guy, I have it write a prompt. You wouldn't need to do that. But I've got all this in here, and that's just one of them. So all 5 of those threads, that's just for my first post. I've got 25 of these that I can go through, and I get 25 of them every day. They're good. I get hundreds, if not thousands, of engagements with them because these are helpful to my audience. They're not just AI slop, which I know you're worried about. The reason they're not AI slop is because I've trained my agents. You saw from what I gave you and what I walked you through there, I've given it massive directions for it to walk through so it knows what it needs to do. And that means I'm able to create high quality content by leveraging AI to do it. And it absolutely works across the board. Now, you may be saying, Jonathan, could I do that just in chat? Sure, I can move over to chat, but here's the problem. We had, I believe it was 8 or 9 steps. I'd have to go back and look at it. If I do that in chat, I'm going to be able to do one step at most at a time because each step had multiple tasks within it, and it doesn't have the persistent memory to be able to do that in chat. I'm still in Claude, as you can see, but now I'm over in chat and it has different uses. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not usable. It's very usable. In fact, probably 90% of my daily prompting happens right here in the chat window as opposed to the agent window. And what criteria do I use? I told you I was going to share with you criteria. The criteria that I use is very simple. Is this 2 tasks or more? If it's 2 tasks, I can do it in chat. If it's more than 2 tasks, we had a lot more than 2 tasks in that workflow I just gave you, then it needs to become agentic. But most of what I do, I'll take a quick look here at my chief of staff. This is, by the way, I have an AI chief of staff. I'm sure that you can use the same thing. Very simple. It's trained on things. So to show you over here, it's trained on my context, my voice, how I like to manage different things with templates in place. I'm a sales guy by nature, so it's got how do I handle pre-selling? How do I handle my architecture? What about my audience? It's got information on my audience. It's got how I want it to manage my inbox. Oh, by the way, how about AI writing style? Have you ever found words that you don't like it to use? Things like delve and game changer and maybe those darned EM and EN dashes that we were taught to use, but now we're not supposed to because it's AI copy. Well, that's part of my anti-AI writing guide. See, it's right there. It's everything I want to do. And let's see, I've got some things I can find it somewhere. So here, banned words, game changer, delve, in conclusion, cannot be overstated, cutting edge, underscore. This highlights the importance of, omits, notably, brings us one step closer to, or as a result, robust M dashes and en dashes. Guess what? As a result, very rarely, I won't say never, does my copy end up with any of this because I told it, don't put it in there. I gave it rules for it to follow so it knows who I am. I gave it structure sentence that I wanted for sentence, patterns that I wanted to avoid, like avoid late night infomercial tones or big unrealistic promises. You ever written copy with AI and it makes like this massive gargantuan promise and you're like, that's BS. That's not true. Well, I don't want that to show up anywhere. So I told it, don't do that. I also don't want it to be so over polished and smooth that it sounds like a press release. That's not any good either because people don't like that. So again, all of that went in there. Oh, another one, by the way, just before I move on, emojis. Love them or not, I don't care. Too many of them, it's a bad thing for your copy. So said be careful. All of this is in here. By the way, that's one of, as you can see, it looks like 10 different total files that I've got in there that train my AI how to do things. And you can see I've used it for not as much today. I've been doing a lot of trainings today. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like only 6 times today. That's pretty low for me. I generally average close to 100 prompts, but I've been on a lot of Zoom calls today. So that's different. Day's not over either. We'll have a lot more by the time we're done. But I can do all kinds of stuff in here that I want, and it produces great content across the board. But my rule, again, 2 or less tasks, chat. 3 or more, agent, which in this case is Cowork. Again, you could use OpenClaw, you could use Hermaids, you could use Perplexity Computer, you can use anyone you want. I just happen to have this open and I love using Claude. It's where I spend most of my time. The other thing I mentioned to you, and this is really cool, and I just want to show you, it's not about creating content directly, but well, it kind of is. So I record virtually everything that I talk about. My meetings, you probably are recording your meetings. If you have a wearable device that you're wearing, you're going to do that. And I have what I call my granola transcript content mining. Oh, I guess it is about content mining. And what do I do? Now, granola is the tool that I use, but it literally, as I mentioned, an agent can go connect to other applications and pull information. So this has a shorter goal. It's not as long as you can see. It's just, let's see, 3, 4, 5. I see 5 steps. So 5 steps, that's more than 3. That means I'm going to move my agent. But we'll run this a minute, and it's literally going to take a look at the last 24 hours of meetings that I've had. What's it going to do? It's then going to pull all of those together, and it's going to identify not only the meetings, not only who I met with, but more importantly, I called it my content mining. It's going to review those transcripts to surface any recurring sayings, any quotes, any recurring topics, and map them to content opportunities. Because have you ever sat at a blank screen and you're like, I know I need to write a post, but I don't know what I'm going to write about. I talked about a lot. They should be easy, but I don't know what I'm going to. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Take your transcripts from everything you've done. I'm going to pull up yesterday's because that's one's already done, or it's working on mine. But you can see here's my one for yesterday. It pulled up 7 meetings that I had. It then came up with recurring things. So one of the recurring things that I talked about is AI without context sounds like AI for everybody else. Well, why is that good? Here's the meetings it showed up in, including a coaching call that I had, the form, what can we do, why it matters, and then content formats. I could use this for Facebook or LinkedIn hook. AI without context sounds like AI for everybody else. Here's what that means for your business. AI wrote that, by the way, guys. It just took what I talked about and turned that into it. For a short form video, how about open with the line cold, explaining the 4 layers in 60 seconds. So I just say it. A blog post, why your AI sounds generic and the one fix that changes everything. Now I've got a topic I can write my blog post on, and maybe an email. Your AI is lying to you, kind of. So just like that, based on one of the talking points, it creates a bunch of ideas for me. By the way, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those that it came up with. That was just in quotes. And then it went down to recurring topics. It tracks what I talk about day to day and keeps those up so that if I mention things like the orchestra that I mentioned to you when we started this, it's an analogy I use all the time. It now knows about that and starts talking about when we can use that and where that may fit. And let's see, we go through that. Then I get some standalone quotes that I could do. Let's see here a minute. Yeah, this was a great one. You could be the juiciest peach in the world, but there will always be people who don't like peaches. You can write the best content in the world, but there will always be somebody that's trolling you and tells you how terrible it is. It's part of life, and we have to accept that. So that was actually in a meeting I had with my chief of staff, my real chief of staff, Sarah, as she was working. And then it says, what about a graphic quote card or an opening line of a community management post or a short reel with text overlay or even an email opener with topics where I could use that? And you can see I've got multiple quotes. I won't bore you with reading all those. But every day I go through and I do this same thing. And what that means is that when I come in and I go, man, I don't know what I'm going to talk to about. Notice here, my AI agent is actually going out and connecting to a third party app that grabs all of these things together. And you can see here, it's actually putting this together. So 18 meetings that it grabbed because I had the last 24 hours. So I told you it's been a busy meeting day. 18 meetings. It's going through and analyzing that material. It's pulling it in. By the way, it's pulling it in from another app. I notice I never went connected it. I never grabbed the transcript and pasted it over here. All of this is happening because I have my agent configured to go do this. I at one time did need to give it access, just like if I hired a new employee, at one time I'd need to give it access, but I don't need to do it every single day. Just like if I had an employee, they'd know what to do the next day because I taught them the day before. Except here's the benefit of using an agent. An agent never gets sick and tired of working. An agent never calls in sick. An agent never comes late to work. All of those things. And oh, by the way, I don't have to pay my agent any more money. If we can, let's stop my screen share here a minute. I don't know what button to press to do that. Let's see if we can do it. Oh, that didn't do what I wanted. There we go. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. So the benefit of an agent, and people may go, Jonathan, okay, this is great. How much do you pay for this? Well, I pay Claude, as of this recording, $200 a month. I could probably get away with their lower plan at $100 a month, but it'd be really tight. And I don't like worrying about whether I'm running out of it. Now, I know some of you are going, oh my gosh, $200 a month? Yes. Let me ask you, if you were outsourcing and having somebody, a ghostwriter or somebody to help you write your content every month, and you knew that you could get essentially an unlimited amount of blog posts, an unlimited amount of video scripts, an unlimited number of social posts on any topic that you could think of. By the way, if you're working for clients, you can include their stuff in here as well. Would you be willing to pay $200 to have an unlimited flow of content that sounded like you, that was targeting your audience, and that allowed you to literally just proof, copy, and paste? Because that's what I have plus more. This is just the content creation I'm talking about. I'm not talking about other things that I have to do, operational stuff because I'm running a business, helping out with reviewing resumes because our last position, we got over 300 resumes. I don't want to review 300 resumes. So I didn't. I gave it the job description, told it what type of person we're looking for, and I had AI go through and identify the 30 that I should look at that were probably the best. Now, do I know they were the best? No, but they were all good. And I had to now review 30 of them to find the people that we ended up needing and ended up hiring, as opposed to 300 resumes that it would have taken me forever to go through. So AI and agents, AI even in chat, can do a lot for you. But I hope now you have an understanding of what makes an agent, the ability to do massive workflows, the ability to control other applications and do that for you, not just browser based. Your chat can do that. It can go out in your browser and grab stuff, but actually controlling other applications, connecting to other data and pulling it in like it's doing from my granola note taker. And now that hopefully is simple. And how do you make the decision? Do I use chat or do I use agent? The difference in my mind, am I doing one or two tasks or am I doing three or more? If I'm doing them three or more in one workflow that I want to just dump and have it handle, I want to move over to my agent to do that. And of course, does it do all this automatically? Well, no, you have to train it, just like you have to train an employee when you bring a new employee on. You must train it, and training will continue. I add things to my agent on a weekly basis, new knowledge, new skills, things that it did when I'm like, hey, why did you do that? And it'll tell me, and generally it's an excuse that I don't care about, but I can now update my training so that it gets taken place on a regular basis, and my agent can learn. Now, is it self-learning? We could go down that rabbit hole. I'm not doing that right now, and I don't think it works as well as some people claim. Our agents, are they sentient? Can they do anything? No, they can't. They're really smart predictive text tools, and they do a really good job, but they're not sentient. They're not going to figure out how to plug themselves in or unplug themselves. But we have some amazing tools, and especially as content creators and marketers, if you're not leveraging AI to help you literally be able to either do 2 to 3 times more work than you could do a year ago, or save you 50% or more of your time, it's time you get on board, because AI can save you tremendous amounts of time and do so at incredibly affordable rates. So there we go. That's AI versus AI agents.
Yeah. This has been amazing. Like, I'm just like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. All right. And I love that you're on a $200 plan, but you run multiple businesses. So that also is just like, wow, like the costs are so low. I do have a question. With your big content agent, and you were going down the screen, you're like, it does this, it does this, it does this, it does this. And I'm just looking at one massive prompt. But we know, obviously, if we put one massive prompt into a normal chat screen, it would just die. How
Yes.
many like skills, like how many skills would you have behind the scenes to do that entire content flow that you showed us at the start there?
So I think I have 5 different AI skill files or skills that I've trained my AI on to do that. And you're right. If I gave that all to a chat tool, it would kind of just throw up and go, oh, I don't know what to do with all this. And if it did take it all, the response would be really low, because I would have used up what they call the context window in my prompt, and it wouldn't have much space left to write anything for me. But
Mm.
by running it agentically, it's a different orchestration, the way it goes together. I've got that massive task list. It's not actually prompt so much as it is a big task list. And I guess that's a prompt, that is. But it's also, like you said, it's the skills behind it. I have 5 or 6 skills running behind that, like Veronica that I mentioned, and like my pillar blog post writer, that actually are now taking and giving the skill of writing engaging thread based social media posts, or giving the skill of writing engaging video scripts, or the skill of writing blog posts. All of those are in there. One of the skills that's back in there that I rarely think about is just the skill about, I have a blog post. Does it go on jonathanmast.com or whitebeardstrategies.com? That was a skill. I wrote a process. By the way, I'm not a programmer. I'm a sales and marketing guy. I wrote all this by going to Claude and explaining what I wanted to do in detail, answering a lot of questions, collaborating with my AI, not pulling the proverbial slot machine and hoping I got the perfect answer the first time, but collaborating with it, having a conversation. And then when we got all done, I said, can you write me the instructions to do that? And it said, sure. And it did. And now I refine it about every week or two. I make a small refinement. I find that somebody new I want to throw in, a new newsletter or something that it's pulling that I don't think is relevant. So I have it update, just like I would if I had a real employee. I'd be saying, hey, by the way, let's do this tomorrow instead, because I didn't like the way this turned out. Or, hey, I just learned about this new resource. Let's go ahead and make sure we get that over to them. So it's really just like managing an employee, except that in my case, the beauty is it can work like right now while I'm on a call. It can also work for me at 10 o'clock tonight. And if I don't decide to use it until for 3 days, it doesn't complain, doesn't make any difference. Over the weekend, I'm here in the US. We just celebrated Memorial Day. Guess what? My AI agents were working for me all weekend. They didn't want a holiday. They didn't know it was a holiday. They didn't care if they did know. It wouldn't matter. So, this also, by the way, for those of you going, oh, great, Jonathan, you're replacing a bunch of employees. No, I'm not. You see, if I didn't have AI, I wouldn't put out near as much content. I wouldn't have the size of community that I have either. And we keep hiring because we empower our team to use the same AI tools that I'm talking to you about. And that's actually, if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, that's where you're going to get the most value, because you can empower your team to do exactly what I did in their job. And now imagine how much more work they can get done at a higher level, providing more value along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. And I totally agree with you. I don't know why it keeps doing weird screen things today. Yeah, I totally agree with you when you are like talking to people and they're like, it's taking jobs, it's taking jobs. And I'm like, no, it's freeing up people to do things they're passionate about. And like, who doesn't get excited about coming to work and doing fun things? Like, if you've got a whole team of stuff doing for you, your satisfaction is so much higher because you can see such a high level of output. So, totally agree with this. When it comes to like just back on the content thing, would you have a different skill per platform? So would you have a different skill for, say, LinkedIn, then another skill for Instagram, then another skill for, as you said, Facebook posts? Because I'm feeling like that would be a lot of different skills there.
It would be, but see, the neat thing about skills is they're totally transferable and they're almost unlimited. Unlike a human being, if I said, okay, you need to be an expert in these 26 areas, and it'd be hard as a human to do that. The AI, it's really easy. I just upload 26 skills, or for that matter, 300 skills. It doesn't matter because when it gets to that part of the process, it's going to grab the relevant skill to do that, and it's going to employ that, and it's going to work the way that you've instructed it to do so. So skills are super easy to use. They're fairly easy to create. My Veronica skill has been evolved over the last year. It started as a prompt, then went to a custom GPT, and then was turned into a skill as skills became available. So it's had a lot of refinement. But other skills that I'm using, like my blog post writer, I started from scratch. I had a couple, I didn't like them, so I started from scratch, and I was able to create that entire blog post skill in probably 15 to 20 minutes. Now I can reuse that skill every day or multiple times a day as I want. So to me, at least, the number of skills isn't really important because your AI doesn't care. In fact, it loves it. Give it a skill, and now you're going to get a better response, something that reflects what you want to get out of the AI.
Yeah. I love this. Thank you. Two more quick questions. First one, obviously, still on the same train. If you had maybe you have four different types of Facebook posts you want to do, would you have a different skill per Facebook post or just for the platform? And second thing is it because I know your images are amazing? Is it
Thank
actually
you.
still making all the images for you without you even doing anything still?
So again, I've had to train it. I've had to tell it what I want to do and where it is. And we have a library of what we call character images. If you've never seen my stuff, I use a lot of 3D cartoon animation characters. Yes, I know I'm in my 50s, but I'm a kid at heart and I love them. My audience seems to like them too. So it's been really good. But what we do is we have a library of characters that we've created, and it now looks at that library, finds a relevant photo, and then pulls it and it adds text onto that. We add to that library almost every week. So there's literally, I don't know how many, but there's well over 1,000 images. I know we've created tens of thousands, but there's probably 1,000 images in the library. And it goes and grabs them, reads the content. So it reads that thread-based post and says, okay, based upon this or based on the blog, there's probably a better example, based on the blog, what type of image would appeal and what text should I put on the image? By the way, one of the things we've done there, if you've ever tried using ChatGPT or Google Gemini's image, both of them are fantastic. If you don't give it the right details, it'll like try to recreate your entire post on the image. Generally, I don't want to do that, especially for like a blog post. No, it's way too much. But one of the things we instructed our image tool to do is to think like an expert billboard graphic design. I think it was actually an award winning graphic designer who specializes in billboards. Why? Billboards have to get your attention in about 1 second or less. That means if they have more than about 6 words, not going to work because you're going to be driving by the highway at 70 miles an hour and you're not going to be able to see it. It needs to be something you can see once, boom, get the message and know what it was and move on. And so we gave it, that's part of the way we trained it. We thought in real world, what type of images are out there that would reflect what we want? And we thought, well, billboards, because we need to grab attention. They tend to be attention grabbing, tend to be visual and appealing, but they also don't have a lot of text because if you've ever driven past a billboard with 20 words on it, you stopped after the third or fourth word because you couldn't read it all. So by teaching our tool how to do that and then using characters from our library, we are able to stay very much on brand. The images can be very consistent, but we can still get the messaging across that we want.
Yeah. Love this. It's just amazing the things that you're doing and the outputs that you're getting. I know it's another, like, I don't know if it's a good question or a bad question, but how many posts are you putting out like per day at this point?
So my team puts out between 4 and 10, depending on what's happening. I personally put out on average 10 to 15 posts every single day.
Wow. Is that across one like per channel or is that across all the channels? Because even 10 is still like a lot for the normal person's like, I can do maybe two.
Well, and my recommendation to my students is start with 3. Do 3 a day. Now that's 3 unique posts. So if you publish the same post on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, it's not 3 posts, it's 1 post. You publish the same thing. Publish 3 separate posts. I tend to post for the most part, not always, but on I'll find the channels that are the most similar. So for example, and I'm not saying this is, but I could say Twitter and Threads are going to be very similar. I can post the same piece of content on both and get good service out of both because they're very similar platforms. But if I'm going to post on Facebook and LinkedIn, I probably want to have 2 different versions of that because writing for a LinkedIn audience is different than writing for a Facebook audience. But the beauty of it with I just, as you mentioned earlier, I have a skill for writing LinkedIn posts and I have a skill for writing Facebook posts. Well, they're similar, probably 80%, but 20% is different. And by having that, that makes sure that the LinkedIn post is more likely to work on LinkedIn and the Facebook post is more likely to work on Facebook.
Wow. It's just mind blowing. Like, yeah, that level of output, that level of like the quality is there. Like, I love your stuff. Like, you've got such good
Thank
quality
you.
and like that level of output to go with it. And like the way it's all being managed is just phenomenal. If someone wanted to get started doing this today, what would be like the top 1 or 2 things you would recommend that they start with?
First and foremost, has nothing to do with AI. Understand your audience and commit to adding value. So one of the things you mentioned was the fact that you like my content. By the way, thank you. I appreciate that. But that's because we're absolutely passionate about making sure that the content we put out adds value. If we put out content and our readers look at it, our audience looks at it, and they don't think it was worth their time to read it, we failed miserably. And so the first thing has nothing to do with AI. You need to commit to providing quality, helpful, relevant content that your audience wants. We talk about, I'm an old farm boy. We talk about, if you ever heard of EIEIO from Old McDonald Had a Farm, we talk
Mhm.
about content that is EIEIO content. It means it should be one of these things. It should entertain, it should inspire, it should educate, it should instruct. One of those 4 or more, and most importantly, it should be outrageous. Now, outrageous is not offensive. I know a lot of people go, no, I don't want to be offensive. No, I don't want to be offensive either. But you need to be outrageous so that people stop and read what you're saying. Because if your hooks are boring, we all see too much content. We're not going to read it. Now, I don't want my hooks to be so crazy that people claim BS and don't read what I've posted. So there's a fine line in the middle where you can be outrageous but still be accurate and you can get people to pay attention to what you're writing. But that's number 1. And then number 2, if you want to do this, once you've committed to writing high quality, valuable content to your audience, then put processes together that are repeatable. Figure out, how do I want to write, or how do I write a thread based post? How do I write a blog post? How do I write a post about, maybe it's personal stuff, or maybe it's just a standard engaging post? How do I write those? Give that sample to AI for it to evaluate. And if you have multiple samples, that's even better. Let it evaluate those samples so that it can determine how to create content that reflects the content that you would already create. Then put a plan in together. Start again, three minimum a day. And now I know there's somebody out there, by the way, I got to say this. Somebody's going, if I put out 15 pieces of content, nobody'd pay attention because it's too much content. It's not. And here's the reason. I put out, again, 10 to 15 pieces a day. I have a great friend that does 20 plus pieces a day. You know how many? He's a great friend who I follow, who is on my favorites list. You know how many pieces of his content I see a day? 2 or 3. And he does 20 every day because the algorithms are not going to show every piece of content to every person in your audience. It just doesn't work that way. But the problem is when we go, well, I'm afraid I don't want my audience to get overwhelmed. So I'll put out 1 a day. That's a lot. I'm still a little worried. Your audience is probably going to see 1 post from you a week. But if you put out 10 a day, chances are your audience is going to see 1 or 2 posts that you've put out every day. And if you want to build an audience and continue to build an audience, and that'd probably be my third point to your question, focus on building an audience of people that are interested in what you do, that want to follow what you do. You need to be posting a lot more than you are.
Yeah. I love this. Thank you so much. And I think it's even Gary Vee who, like, a few years ago, he'd be like, yeah, you need to be posting, 10 times a day or whatever. And now he's like, it's up to like 40, 50, 400. Like his numbers are just out of control. And you'd think about it and you'd be like, yeah, but I don't have a massive team, Gary. Like I don't have a million people working for me. And now you're here just being like, well, we can get our little team going, but, they're not human. So I absolutely love this because you're bringing something that, like, to the people who do want to be content creators, you're bringing that option to them and showing them what's actually possible. So this has been phenomenal. I've so appreciated spending time with you, learning, seeing kind of behind the scenes of what you're doing in your business. It has just been mind blowing. And if people haven't heard of you, which would be rare, but if they haven't, where can they find you to follow you?
Best thing is just remember my name. You can go to jonathanmast.com. That's mast.com/linktree. And it's got all the ways to connect with me. If you can't remember that, just remember the guy with the white beard that talked about AI. And you can Google or use Perplexity or even ChatGPT and just ask for the white bearded AI guy. And I should be the one that comes up.